Welcome to our latest Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure. Today we're headed to historic St. Louis, Missouri and a walking tour of the downtown area. Join us as we journey through the vibrant streets and historic landmarks of this iconic city. Our walk here begins at one of the most recognizable landmarks of St. Louis, and that is the Gateway Arch. This is a stunning architectural monument that stands 630 feet tall, and it's the world's tallest arch and often referred to as the Gateway of the West. The arch was constructed to symbolize the role St. Louis played as the Gateway of the West during the westward expansion of the United States. It commemorates Thomas Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase and the pioneers who explored and settled the western frontier. The arch was designed by a Finnish-American architect and was built in the 1960s. It's made of stainless steel and has a very unique, sleek, and elegant style. As we go along our journey today, we'll learn a little bit more about the history of St. Louis, as well as many of the monuments, buildings, and other architectural features that we'll see along the way. One of the first buildings that we come across after the Gateway Arch is the old courthouse. It is one of the most important historic buildings in the city and has played a pivotal role in several landmark events in American history. The courthouse itself is an architectural gem. It's designed in the Greek Revival style, and its great dome is a prominent feature that adds much to its visual appeal in the downtown area. The old courthouse is most famous for being the site of the Dred Scott case. In 1846, Dred Scott, an enslaved man, and his wife Harriet sued for their freedom. The case eventually made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the decision in 1857 had a profound impact on the United States, as it declared that African Americans, whether enslaved or free, were not considered citizens and had no standing to sue in federal courts. One of the other historic buildings that we see that has also played a big role in St. Louis, and that's the International Fur Exchange Building. Fur trading started in St. Louis as early as 1764. This building was constructed in 1919 as a place to display and auction fur pelts. Since we're talking about that early history of St. Louis, it's a little bit helpful here to know a little bit more about St. Louis itself and its history. The area that would become St. Louis was first explored by French explorers, including Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet in the late 17th century. It was officially founded by French fur traders and named after King Louis IX in 1764. St. Louis passed from French to Spanish control in the late 18th century due to political treaties. It was briefly retroceded to the French, but in 1803 the United States acquired the city as part of the Louisiana Purchase. In the 19th century, St. Louis played a crucial role as the gateway to the West. It became a major hub for westward expansion, with pioneers and settlers using it as a starting point for their journeys along the Oregon, Santa Fe, and California trails. During the American Civil War, St. Louis was a significant strategic and industrial center. It served as a key supply point for the Union Army. After the war, the city's industrial base continued to grow, especially with the expansion of railroads and manufacturing. St. Louis attracted a diverse range of immigrants, leading to a rich cultural tapestry in the city. German, Irish, Italian, and other immigrant communities added to and continue to add to the city's character. As we head down our walk in St. Louis, make sure to make a comment if you've been in St. Louis, and if you have, what's one of your most famous buildings or memorials that you see in the downtown area? We're now entering Kinnear Plaza. This is an open park-like setting that is a 2-acre park that was dedicated in 1962 as a memorial to Harry J. Kinnear. Kinnear was an amateur boxer, wrestler, and swimmer who was born in St. Louis in 1881. He is most famous for several medals he won in the 1904 St. Louis Olympics. Kinnear was the captain of the U.S. men's track and field team during those games. The centerpiece of the plaza is a pool and fountain with a statue known as the Runner, which we'll see coming up here in just a few minutes. The statue was sculpted by William Zorak. Harry Kinnear himself donated all the money needed to build the park, fountain, and statue. Ahead of us, this red brick building is called the Wainwright Building, and it is perhaps one of the most famous skyscrapers in the entire world. It is listed as one of the 10 buildings that changed America in an Architect Digest magazine poll. It was the first skyscraper that really looked like one. The building was designed by noted architect Louis Sullivan, who is considered to be the father of skyscrapers. The 10-story red brick office building was completed in 1891. While other taller buildings were constructed previous to the Wainwright Building, this is the first building that used straight lines, even though heavily ornamented as part of its design. Previous skyscrapers looked more like wedding cakes, several floors that were wider at the bottom and narrowed towards the top of the building. Using revolutionary design and construction techniques, Sullivan built a new kind of skyscraper, one that was not only beautiful, but functional. For the next few blocks, we will be experiencing St. Louis's City Garden. Until 2009, this area was once known as the Gateway Mall. It was little more than 2 empty blocks of grass. In July 2009, the 3-acre City Garden was dedicated as a space for outdoor sculptures, water features, and beautiful trees and flowers. Public art is not new to downtown St. Louis. As early as the 1940s, a large work of art by sculptor Carl Mills was installed outside Union Station. Another famous sculpture of 8 large plates of weathering steel by Richard Serra was placed at the far west end of what is now City Garden in 1962. This urban oasis has meandering walkways that take you by large works of art resting on an open lawn. 24 sculptures of both contemporary and modern design are placed throughout the park. Visitors are allowed to touch, walk around, even climb the sculptures. The 6 waterfalls, rain gardens, and the 102-foot spray plaza fountain offer soothing sounds in a busy downtown area. We're now heading into the government center of the downtown area, and this first building we see is the Civil Courts Building. In 1923, the residents of St. Louis voted on a city bond that provided over $87 million for massive city improvements and the construction of a new Civil Courts Building to replace the old courthouse. The building that we see today was completed in 1930. The top of the 255-foot building was designed to resemble the tomb of Mausolus at Halicarnassus. This was considered to be one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world.
Morning.
Across the street from the Civil Courts Building is the majestic United States Courthouse and Post Office Building. The unique and very large structure that we see here on our left is the St. Louis City Hall building. The building was constructed between 1890 and 1904 and continues to serve today as City Hall. The first thing you notice as you look at the building is that several types of materials were used in its construction. The reason for this is that the residents of the city would not pass bond issues to pay for the building. City Hall had to be built in stages when excess money was found in the city budget. The exterior of the first story is constructed of Missouri pink granite. The upper stories are made of orange Roman brick, and sandstone is used around the window openings. Along the grounds of City Hall, you can find statues of the founder of St. Louis, Pierre Laclede, and General Ulysses S. Grant are located on the grounds of the building. The statue of Grant was originally located at the south entrance of City Hall, where he stood next to a cannon. Residents were outraged that Grant's statue was placed at what was once considered the back door of City Hall. His statue soon moved to the more prominent location in front of City Hall that we see today. The Municipal Courts building is a three-story Bedford stone structure that was completed in 1911. For over 90 years, this was the site where the municipal courts for the city of St. Louis were located. Many city government offices were also located in the building. At the rear of the building was the city jail and civil courts. In 2000, the Thomas Eagleton Federal Courthouse was completed and all municipal courts were moved to that building. And today this building stood and it continues to stand vacant. The Soldiers' Memorial Building is a tribute to all the men and women who lost their lives in the wars that this country has fought. In 1923, the residents of St. Louis voted to spend $6 million for a war memorial to honor those St. Louisianians who lost their lives in World War I. Nearly all the money approved was spent on purchasing the land and little was left to construct the building. It took another decade and funds from the Federal Relief and Recovery Act used during the Great Depression to construct the Soldiers' Memorial. President Franklin D. Roosevelt dedicated the building in 1936. Between 1934 and 1936, a state-of-the-art opera house and connected municipal convention hall auditorium was constructed in downtown St. Louis. The buildings were named the Keel Auditorium upon the passing of popular St. Louis Mayor Henry Keel in 1945. Today, the original structure has been greatly reduced in size, but inside is still a 3,500-seat main theater. The Opera House remains. Throughout the years, the Opera House has seen many entertaining and historic events. The first performance was in 1934 with the production of Aida, and in that same year, the St. Louis Orchestra became the primary tenant of the building and would perform here until the 1960s. Little known fact that the St. Louis Symphony is the second oldest in the United States. In 1965, a benefit concert with musical legends Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. was held inside the Opera House. The concert was organized to raise money for a national halfway home for convicts. The overflow audience filled dozens of nearby halls where the concert could be viewed on closed-circuit television. It was the only time in the history of the Rat Pack's famous Vegas-style shows that they ever televised. This beautiful Art Deco building was built as the headquarters for the Missouri Pacific Railroad. The original plans called for the building to rise 35 stories into the sky, making it the tallest building in the city at the time. Construction began in 1928, however, the Great Depression impacted the work on the building. Rather than stop work, the owners of the building decided to end construction, and the building only rose to 23 floors. In 1929, the Missouri Pacific Railroad began operations from this building. The large white building we see on our left is the Central Library building for St. Louis. It's one of the city's best architectural treasures. Cass Gilbert, who was the architect for the St. Louis Art Museum and the U.S. Supreme Court building, designed this Italian Renaissance-style building. The library opened in 1912. Philanthropist Andrew Carnegie provided much of the money needed for its construction. He offered the city $1 million for the construction of the library, and the residents of St. Louis provided the rest of the funds to complete the building and to purchase the books inside. Across the street from the library is the historic Christ Church Cathedral. The parish of Christ Church dates back to the city of St. Louis before the city of St. Louis was even chartered. In 1819, 26 congregants met in a building that were a formal dance hall to organize the church. This was the first Episcopal Anglican congregation west of the Mississippi River. The church building that we were looking at today began construction in 1859, and the first service to be held on the church was on Christmas Day, 1867. The cathedral is a great example of the 14th century early English Gothic style, and it's renowned for its stained glass windows and Skinner organ inside. For the next several blocks, we'll be walking along Washington Avenue. This was one of the most, and continues to be one of the most historic commercial areas in the downtown St. Louis area. Many of these buildings that we see were constructed in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and many are 4, 5, 6 stories tall that once held warehouses, dry goods stores, retail stores, much as they do today. Beaux Arts style Orpheum Theater was constructed in 1917. The Orpheum was financed by a local self-made millionaire by the name of Louis A. Sella. The $500,000 theater was initially used as a location for vaudeville shows in the St. Louis area. By the 1930s, vaudeville was in a steep decline due to the new talking movie pictures. Warner Brothers purchased the building in 1930, and it operated as a movie theater until closing in the mid-1960s. The building stood empty until the 1980s when it was restored as the American Theater. It was later sold to two local brothers, and the building was renamed the Roberts Orpheum Theater. In 2012, the theater was sold and eventually closed. Hopefully, renovations will one day go on to restore the building back to its former glory.
I don't know.
The U.S. Custom House and Post Office was constructed between 1873 and 1884. This museum is designed in the French Second Empire style. It was designed by Alfred Mollett, who also designed the old Executive Office building in Washington, D.C., which is right next door to the White House. The U.S. Court of Appeals met here from 1891 to 1935, and the U.S. Circuit Court met here beginning in 1912. From 1935 until 1975, the building housed the main post office for St. Louis. And for over 3 decades, the building stood empty when the U.S. Post Office moved to a new location. In 2004, the building was transferred to the state of the Missouri. It was completely renovated and brought back to its former glory, and today houses office space, a campus for Webster University, and the Missouri Court of Appeals. The America's Center Convention Complex is a huge convention building in the downtown area of St. Louis. It was constructed in 1977. There are 83 meeting rooms and over 502,000 square feet of exhibition space inside the convention hall. I hope you've enjoyed this Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure here in downtown St. Louis. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on our next Wandering Walks of Wonder. Take care now. Bye-bye.